Dollar. Dirt on money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yup, what's good, original crew, man? We're back. No Mr. Ballen. The shocking ending to a van life. Have you ever thought about doing van life? I never thought about doing van life. I can't get jiggy with that. Can't get jiggy with that lifestyle. You can?
I think I could.
Nah. It's not meant for me. All power to those who can. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. But before we do, make sure you check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go if you want the first part. All you have to do is check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's visuals,
like it with a thumbs up.
Always, man. We highly appreciate it. But you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Today, I'm going to share 2 totally weird medical mysteries. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button is out of town, sneak into their house and prop open their refrigerator door, and then just leave. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on...
Let's try. You know how I like to eat. If I come back home and my food's full.
Girl, you don't even be keeping that in the fridge like that.
You said what?
You said you don't be keeping that. All your stuff be mainly in the freezer. You don't keep nothing in the fridge.
I keep stuff in the fridge.
Like what?
I like stuff.
Condiments.
Yeah.
Drinks. Other than that.
My milks and sometimes my breads, depending on what type of bread it is.
Girl, your breads be in the freezer.
My bread ain't in the freezer.
That's
because that was a certain type of bread.
But other than that, what bread you keep in the freezer?
In the fridge.
I mean, in the fridge. I ain't never seen you keep.
I have some in there right now.
What, the bread you just bought today?
I ain't bought none today.
What bread you got?
You see it.
Prop open their refrigerator door, and then just leave. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's stories. On the evening of July 25th, 2008, a 59-year-old man named Brian Thomas walked hand in hand with his wife Christine out of the restaurant where they had just had dinner. The couple was in this little village right on the coast of Wales, and where they were now walking outside of this restaurant was right along the water. And so as they did that, Brian found himself looking out over the sea, and he saw the reflection of the moon on the waves, and it was so beautiful. And then he turned to his wife, and she was so stunning. And so Brian finally just stopped and kind of just took in all this incredible beauty right in front of him, and he began smiling ear to ear, which was a big departure from how Brian had been feeling over the past few months, because Christine had recently had a big scare. She'd been told she might have cancer, and so she went in for all this testing, and then she and Brian had to wait for it to come back, and the wait was absolute torture. I mean, basically Brian and Christine were prepping themselves to find out Christine really did have cancer. But when the results did come back, it would turn out Christine did not have cancer, and so Christine was obviously hugely relieved, but it was actually Brian who was more relieved. It was like he suddenly saw he could lose his wife of 40 years, who he had raised a family with. I mean, this was like the most important person in Brian's life, but it was like he didn't fully appreciate that until he realized he could lose this really important person. And so now that Christine had a clean bill of health, Brian was committed to showering her with love and affection and taking her to restaurants and on vacations. And in fact, the reason they were actually in this village in Wales is because they were on one of Brian's many vacations for Christine. He had gone out and bought this little camper van, and they had driven it up to this part of Wales. And then after this vacation ended, Brian's plan was to use this camper to travel with his wife all over Great Britain. And so the couple had a really busy schedule coming up. But for right now, Brian was focused on just staying in the moment and enjoying this newfound happiness he was feeling. And so he and his wife would continue to just kind of walk along the water for a bit. And then finally, when they felt tired, they headed back to their camper, they went inside, they got in their bed, and they fell asleep. A little before 4 a.m., Brian suddenly woke up inside of this camper. And so he sits upright, and he looks around. You know, it's totally dark inside of there. He can't see anything. He doesn't really know why he just woke up. And he's trying to get his bearings. And then, as his eyes kind of begin to focus, he realizes there is a person standing inside of their camper right near the door. Basically 10, 15 feet away from he and his wife is a person. And so Brian just froze, and he's staring at this person, hoping this is just a dream or something. But then this person, who appeared to be dressed in all black, head to toe, began to move. And they began to move first to the left, and then towards the bed. And so Brian is still just frozen, thinking, is this real? Is this really happening? And then this person began climbing on the bed on the side where Christine was. And so Brian, without even thinking, just yelled out, "You bastard!" And he jumped off the bed at this guy and began choking them out. And the whole time, Brian is screaming at this person, like, "What are you doing? Why are you here?" And this person is fighting back so hard, and Brian is just not letting go. It's like,
what if it's Christine?
I so was thinking it. I was like, what if it's your wife? But then I'm like, but why would she not say anything, and why would he not? What?
You're like, what the fuck going on?
I'm really like that.
Here, and this person is fighting back so hard, and Brian is just not letting go. It's like instinct is completely taken over, and then this person goes totally still and just dies. And Brian knows he killed them, but they came into his camper. Like, what do you expect? Brian would ultimately be the one who called the police, and just several minutes later, they would show up, and when they got there, they would find Brian standing outside the camper, hyperventilating, and then when they tried to get more information about what exactly had happened inside the camper, Brian basically couldn't explain it. It was like he was totally in shock. And so eventually, one of the officers just went inside the camper, and there on the ground, they would find a body. But it was not some attacker. It was Brian's wife.
Lord!
It would turn out Brian had a medical condition called somnambulism, which we know as sleepwalking. And at home, he would sleep in a different bed than his wife because he sleepwalked so much. But since they were on vacation in their camper, they had to sleep together because there was only one bed on board the camper. And so not long after Brian and Christine had fallen asleep together, Brian began having this really intense nightmare where he believed his wife was being attacked. And so Brian, in this nightmare, had to stop this person from hurting Christine. Except...
Or what if it's all a lie? What if plot twist? I'm just going to a plot twist because this is where my head be going sometimes.
Oh, I got
if,
something. Go ahead.
Oh, you go.
No,
you go. Just go because I know you'll forget.
I promise I won't.
What if the plot twist is actually this was his motive the whole time? Was to go on this little camping trip, or this little vacation where they camp, but he was always plotting to kill her. He was going to use the fact that he sleepwalked, because he probably thought that she had cancer and she was going to die. He probably had a life insurance.
Yes, I was sorry. I'm like,
My thing is, because with the life insurance policy, I know if you kill them, it's voided. But if it's an accidental death in this situation, you probably are still rewarded and you have this, not a disease, but this,
condition.
This condition. And you can use it as a leverage to be able to get away with the murder crime. And so this is the excuse. And then since it's a medical condition that has been diagnosed, the doctor will be like, it's a possibility. That's the reason why they're sleeping. Because he probably doesn't have this all the time. And why all of a sudden something happens and y'all are so aware of the situation to the point where y'all have always gone this whole lifetime sleeping in separate rooms. Why would you risk that? With this situation? Because y'all have took these precautions this whole time.
To avoid something possibly like this. Or whatever. Because
he probably don't have it often. It probably doesn't happen that often, but just in case it does. But he using this as an excuse.
That's what I was going to say.
And so Brian, in this nightmare, had to stop this person from hurting Christine. Except, because of his sleepwalking, he acted this out in real life. And the attacker that he ultimately killed was ironically his wife. He basically tackled his wife and strangled her to death because he thought he was actually saving her. Brian was absolutely destroyed with grief and with guilt, and the second he realized what he had done, he confessed. He didn't in any way try to protect himself. He said, "I did this, take me in." And Brian would be arrested. However, in November of 2009, the judge who actually heard Brian's official confession, he kind of felt bad for Brian and said, "You know what? I'm dropping all charges against you because it's obvious to me you are a good and decent person. This was a mistake, and you're going to live with grief and guilt for the rest of your life, and that's punishment enough."
So
we made up the whole.
But
we
like,
made up that whole. Listen, I really thought that's what it was.
but let's be realistic. Who knows?
Okay. Well, I was on the same page as you. Still am. But at the same time,
If that's what they want to rule it,
that's
what they
you
want to
know.
rule it.
Who am I? I'm not gonna sit up here and say this man did that on purpose. I don't know. Maybe it was an accident.
But as a detective type, I would look into that though. Just as a.
That's sad and very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Cause maybe it was an accident.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, say for instance, if I'm a detective,
you would just look into that to rule that out.
Yeah, to rule that out.
Just make sure.
To look at it, because you never rule. Because sometimes people will rule that out and not look into that.
But even with that, now that I think about it, you can't necessarily say if it was or wasn't, even if a life insurance is involved, because a life insurance could have been put in place like. They've been married 40 years now.
But he probably thought, "Oh, I'm gonna come into this life insurance because if she got cancer, I'm gonna,
But that's what I'm saying. If it was something that probably recently put in place.
No, not even that.
What?
Because he probably started preparing himself if he really felt as though she had cancer. I'm not saying I'm just there.
Yeah, but I was just like 40 years.
No, let me explain. So,
ahead.
say for instance, you like, hey, okay, let me start moving on. You start getting a curious eye, and then. Some people start saying, hey, dating behind the scenes, like she's ill, possibly has cancer, she's going to be croaking soon. Let me go ahead and move. Some people will be like that, though.
Yeah.
Not saying that this situation, but
yeah.
if the judge ruled it as an accidental death, that's what we have to go with.
That's so sad. But yeah.
Are we watching too many damn crime shows to come into that? But technically, crime shows are based off of things that happen.
It's really like messing
that happen for real though.
Yeah.
So, cause that's how they get their scenarios.
True.
One morning in January of 2016, a 45-year-old woman named Lauren walked into an office building in West Virginia where she worked as an office manager, and she dropped her purse, her phone, and her cigarettes on her desk. It was a Friday, and so Lauren was in a really good mood because she was pumped about the weekend. The next day, Saturday, she and her husband Dan planned to go on this big hike together. They loved hiking, so that was going to be awesome. And then on Sunday, Lauren planned to stay home all day and cook one big meal because it had become a tradition in their family that on Sundays, Lauren and Dan's kids, they had 3 kids who were all grown up, they would come back home to their parents' house and they would have a big family meal together. And these dinners were definitely the highlight of the week for Lauren and for Dan because both of them were very family-centric. Lauren switched on her computer and then looked at her schedule and saw she had a whole bunch of meetings back to back to back that day. And so immediately she was worried that she would not be able to slip out that day and go for a quick walk, something she had recently been doing a lot of because her doctor had recently told her that she had a blood circulation disorder that was called peripheral vascular disease. And what that meant was the arteries that carried the blood from her heart down to her legs and her feet were becoming blocked. And so her legs and feet were not getting enough oxygen. So far, her only symptoms were the occasional leg cramp, but if the disease got worse, it could lead to pain and mobility issues, and also heart attack and stroke. Luckily, Lauren's doctor told her that she didn't need medication, she just needed to quit smoking, change her diet, and become more physically active. And Lauren had totally leaned into this, and was being much more active, and had changed her diet. She hadn't quit smoking yet, but she planned to. And so Lauren really felt like she was on the right track. And so as Lauren kind of began her day, going through her emails and thinking about when she's going to do this walk, her cell phone rang. When Lauren looked at the phone, she didn't recognize the number, so she decided to let it go to voicemail. And so Lauren forgot about her phone and just figured whoever this was, they'd call back or whatever, and she's doing her thing. But then she got another phone call. And when she looked, it was the same number calling her back. And this time, Lauren did pick up the phone. And when she said hello, on the other end of the line, she heard a police officer say in a very serious voice, "Am I speaking to Dan's wife?" And so right away, Lauren's heart began to race, and she would tell the officer, yes, what's going on? And all the officer would tell her is that Dan, unfortunately, was in a very serious car accident, and so you need to come to the scene right away. In an absolute panic, Lauren hung up the phone, she grabbed her things, she ran out to the car, and she floored her way to the address the police officer gave her. But when she got there, she saw there were so many police cars and ambulances and all these people that she couldn't even see what was going on, let alone park anywhere near where this accident happened. So she wound up parking her car around the corner, and then she got out and just sprinted towards all the police. And then when she got up to them, she basically began pushing people out of the way, and no one tried to stop her. They could tell, this woman must know the people involved in this crash. And so she pushed past all these people, and finally she can see through the crowd, and she can see her husband's car, and it's absolutely mangled. And there's all these first responders that are in a circle on the pavement, and she can tell there is somebody on the ground they're working on, and it's got to be Dan. And so Lauren just began running towards that group of people, and as she did, they all stood up as if, there was nothing they could do. And on the ground, Lauren saw her husband. There was Dan lying in this huge pool of blood, just motionless on the ground. And so before she even got over to her husband, Lauren already knew what had happened. Dan was dead. And so Lauren let out this primal shriek and just rushed over to her husband and fell to the ground next to him, holding his body and crying hysterically. And all the EMTs and first responders, they knew this woman has just lost her husband. And even though she shouldn't be here right now, they just felt like they have to give this moment to her. And so the police and the EMTs and the rest of the first responders, instead of even talking to Lauren or trying to get her to go somewhere else, they just formed a big circle, shoulder to shoulder, around Lauren and Dan, and just allowed Lauren to grieve in private. About 2 hours later, Lauren returned to her home in a daze. Dan's body had already been transported to the morgue, and a police officer had driven Lauren back to her home where her 3 kids, her son and her 2 daughters, were now waiting for her. And so when Lauren went inside the house and went into the living room where her kids were, her kids, who already knew what had happened, they just immediately swarmed her and hugged her, and they all just cried together. I mean, this was so horrible and so unexpected that nobody knew what to do. Finally, Lauren tried to speak through her sobs, but when she did, she just couldn't get words out. It was like her chest was so tight she couldn't even speak. And then suddenly, Lauren realized this pressure on her chest was very real, and it was getting worse and worse, to the point where it was genuinely hard to take a breath in. And so Lauren actually said to her kids,
I ain't gonna lie, that's the main thing I thought about when she heard the news. I said, oh, she already got like a blood flow issue.
Yeah.
This stress ain't good.
Yeah.
This a life or death type of stress right here. And if you really don't know how to deal with it, or even think, put in your mind that this medical condition you got, you can damn near kill yourself.
True.
Lauren realized this pressure on her chest was very real, and it was getting worse and worse, to the point where it was genuinely hard to take a breath in. And so Lauren actually said to her kids, I think I'm having a panic attack. And so her daughter ran to the kitchen to get some water. And as she did, Lauren took a seat on the couch to try to calm down. But by the time her daughter came back with the glass of water, Lauren straight up just could not breathe. I mean, she was trying to pull air in, but it wasn't going in, and she was totally panicking. And so she looked at her kids and just mouthed the words, I can't breathe. At which point the kids understood, like, this is way beyond just grief and sadness. Like, she's having a physical emergency right now. And so one of Lauren's daughters picked up the phone and called 911. A few minutes later, an ambulance arrived, and they would take Lauren to a local hospital. But as soon as they got there, the doctors and nurses determined that very likely Lauren had had a heart attack. And even though she was basically stable right now, Their fear is she was going to have another one, and this particular local hospital just lacked the resources and staff to actually treat Lauren. And so they pretty much immediately transferred Lauren to another hospital called the JW Memorial Hospital in Morgantown, West Virginia, because that hospital had a specialized cardiac care unit for people with very serious heart problems. Dr. Conard Falinger was the cardiologist on duty at JW Memorial Hospital when Lauren was brought into the intensive care unit, followed closely behind by her 3 adult children. Now, Dr. Falinger was used to seeing worried families in the hospital, but Lauren's kids looked far more distressed than he was used to seeing. And when he spoke to Lauren's kids about, what's going on with Lauren, he would see why. The doctor would learn that this family has lost their father, their husband, just a few hours earlier, and the mother, Lauren, who's this patient, she laid with her dead husband out on the road in a pool of blood, and now these poor kids who've just lost their father, they're seeing their mother go to the ICU for what looks like a heart attack. I mean, this was a total worst case scenario where basically everything was going wrong for this family. Dr. Falinger did his best to push his emotions to the side. He didn't want to get wrapped up emotionally in this case, but at the same time, the doctor felt a very deep need to save Lauren. Like, let this family have one good thing happen to them. But Lauren's condition was pretty dire. Just like the doctors at that local hospital where Lauren went first, Dr. Falinger also suspected Lauren had a heart attack, very likely because of that blood circulation disorder that she had that basically clogged her arteries. When an artery in the heart gets blocked, the blood can't circulate in the heart, and so the heart dies. And preliminary testing on Lauren showed there was already signs of damage to her heart, in the same way that a heart attack would damage a heart. Her heartbeat was also irregular, and it was too fast, and her blood pressure was dangerously low. And then also, when Dr. Falinger looked at some imaging of Lauren's heart, he could see that the majority of her heart muscle wasn't even moving. Basically, Lauren's heart was working way harder and way faster than it should be to accomplish nothing. And so...
Yo. This is, I think way crazy, right? Mm-hmm. What if, because she looks as though she's having a failing heart. Mm-hmm. Husband was just in a car wreck. Mm-hmm. What if she needs a heart transplant? And his heart, she could use it. That would be like one of them, damn.
Yeah.
No, it can't be one of those type shit. You think?
Do you think?
Because that's crazy if that's the case. Like, yeah, you literally, like, have a bad heart, can die.
What was the little title thing?
Look on the title.
No, not that. I'm talking about what he put up before he, started talking. Because I always read that because it always give me an idea, kind of. I can't remember what he had. I remember it was, something, save her or something like that. But I can't remember. But anyway. Was
it Operation something? I can't get it.
It's okay.
But that would be crazy if that's the case, man.
Working way harder and way faster than it should be to accomplish nothing. And so, very quickly, Dr. Falinger realized that unless he was able to find the blocked artery in Lauren's heart and clear it, that Lauren would die. And so Dr. Falinger looked up at Lauren's 3 kids who were just standing there in silence, waiting for more bad news. And Dr. Falinger said to them, "Your mom needs to go into surgery right now." Nurses wheeled Lauren out of the ICU and into surgery, where she was immediately put under anesthesia. Once Lauren was ready, Dr. Falinger watched on a monitor as another surgeon fed a thin, flexible tube, called a catheter, into an artery in Lauren's leg, and then fed it up towards her heart. This surgery was called cardiac angioplasty. Basically, that surgeon was going to use that catheter, that tube, and put it into Lauren's heart and then shoot dye through that catheter tube into the blood in Lauren's heart. And then Dr. Falinger and the other doctors could watch to see where this dye went. If the dye was pumped out of the heart like it should be, they'd see it go in all different directions. But if at some point on the monitor the dye just stopped inside the heart and didn't go anywhere, then that would mean they found a blockage. And so when the surgeon had the catheter in Lauren's heart, he injected the dye, and they all watched on the monitor, and her heart functioned completely fine. There was no blockage in her heart. Now, the doctors weren't entirely convinced yet that there was no blockage, so they pulled that catheter out and they got a different one, and they went through the exact procedure all over again to see if maybe that catheter was malfunctioning. But again, the second time, the dye didn't stop anywhere. Her heart seemed to be functioning totally normally. And so Dr. Falinger and the rest of the doctors and surgeons, they were all totally baffled, because what this meant was whatever was happening to Lauren, or whatever did happen to Lauren, was not a heart attack. But make no mistake, Lauren's heart was still absolutely dying. It was just some other thing killing it. Dr. Falinger went back to the drawing board, but realistically, there just weren't that many other things to consider with regards to what was happening to Lauren. Heavy alcohol use could in theory cause what was happening to Lauren, but Lauren didn't drink. Infection was another option, but Lauren showed no signs of having an infection. Certain chemotherapy drugs have been known to damage the heart, but Lauren wasn't on chemo and certainly would not have accidentally been exposed to chemo drugs without knowing about it. And so basically, Dr. Falinger had no clue what was wrong with Lauren, and he didn't even know where to start. And so Dr. Falinger just sat in his office feeling so bad about the fact that, these kids are almost certainly gonna lose their other parent. I mean, it was his duty to save Lauren, and he couldn't do it. And he just felt so bad. He couldn't even imagine how he was gonna deliver the news to the kids that, your mom's gonna die and we don't know why. I mean, this was the worst for Dr. Falinger. He felt like he had failed as a doctor. But just then, Dr. Falinger has this epiphany. He remembers this weird medical article he had read somewhat recently, and he realized what was going on with Lauren and her family was like the same thing that happened in that article. And because Dr. Falinger did not have any other ideas of how to handle what was going on with Lauren, he decided he would just try to do what they did in that article, because if he was wrong, he had nothing to lose. So Dr. Falinger got up and he ran to Lauren's hospital room, and when he got in there, he saw Lauren's kids and he called them over to him. And he would tell them that he's going to give their mom some medication that's going to spike her blood pressure and keep it high, but then he needs them to gather around her and just talk to her like she's your mom. Talk lovingly, soothingly, remind her that you're still here and that everything is okay. And the kids,
A broken heart type?
I'm over here, my brain is really going because I'm trying to figure out.
I don't know. I've never heard this. I have no idea.
Lovingly, soothingly, remind her that you're still here and that everything is okay. And the kids, they all agreed to do this. And then Dr. Falinger, he gave the medicine to Lauren, and then he watched as her three kids circled up around the head of the bed, and they're all crying and holding their mom and telling her how much they love her and please come back to us, come back. And as they're doing this, Dr. Falinger just quietly walked out of the room, hoping this would work. And sure enough, just a week later, Lauren was all better. It would turn out the way in which Lauren lost her husband, both the suddenness of getting that phone call, combined with just the unthinkable horror of seeing your loved one on the road in a pool of blood dead. I mean, that situation was so stressful for Lauren that her brain released a ton of stress hormones into her body. So much so that these stress hormones literally paralyzed her heart. And so you can understand why all the doctors thought this was a heart attack, because this sort of looked like one. But this condition does have its own name. It's called stress cardiomyopathy. However, it's known by its more casual name, which is broken heart syndrome. Basically, Lauren loved her husband so much that to witness what happened to him and to learn about it so suddenly and abruptly, it nearly killed her. And it just so happens that a few months before Lauren was checked into the hospital, Dr. Falinger happened to read a medical article about broken heart syndrome. And the only way you can treat broken heart syndrome is just to try to keep the patient alive long enough that the stress hormones leave their body naturally, at which point their heart goes back to normal. And so Dr. Falinger was able to buy Lauren a little bit of time right at the end there by giving her that medicine that boosted her blood pressure. But Dr. Falinger told her three kids that really it was up to them to keep their mother alive. They needed to crowd around their mom and just talk to her and tell her that you love her, show her that you're here with her, give her a reason to fight and hold on. Even though she's not saying or doing anything, she's still alive and she can hear you. So talk to her. And so Lauren's kids just sat around their mother and just showered her with love and affection. And sure enough, a few days later, when Lauren did kind of come out of it and recover, she would say that she felt herself drifting off towards death. I mean, she really knew she was dying. But then she remembers hearing her kids calling to her and saying how much they loved her and to please come back. We need you. We already lost Dad. We got to keep you. And Lauren would say that's the reason she's still here today, is because she held on for her kids. She felt like it was her duty to be here for her family. And so that's what saved her life.
That is crazy, bro. I have heard of that before.
Yeah.
In cases, and who knows, to be honestly, a lot of people possibly have passed because of a broken heart.
Yeah.
Like, and they just didn't know how to treat it, or the lack of information or knowledge to that this is what's going on.
Yeah.
So just imagine those who possibly have, unfortunately, transitioned because of that, you know?
And no one, like, really thought.
Yeah.
So, like, oh, let's do this and see if it works, see if it helps.
And to be real, because everybody deals with stress daily. Like, we all deal with daily stress. But at that degree, I think most people, a tragedy. I think a lot of people go through, like damn near broken heart. Like, especially losing a loved one. Mm-hmm. Especially a loved one that means the world to you. You know? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, man. That's weird. I ain't gonna hold you. I ain't gonna lie. I was hoping my little thought one had was the outcome.
So with the transplant?
Yeah, that she actually had to get his heart. I was gonna say, "Oh my fucking God!" I ain't gonna hold you. I was waiting for them. I was gonna say, "Man, don't tell me." Now she got a part of him forever.
When you said that, I was like, okay. But then I was like...
But nah, it couldn't happen that soon, though.
Then I was just, like, thinking. I'm like, really trying, like, to dig in the back of my mind and, like, figure out. But then when he said what he said with the...
After a while, I was like,
yeah. I was like, let's see. I don't want to jump the gun. Just jump the gun. Oh, no. I was like, I don't want to jump the gun again.
True.
So, but yeah.
But I ain't gonna hold you. I would have liked to see that. Not wishing, hoping that wishing it. But if that ain't happened, bruh, I said, man, y'all better call up Netflix. That's a motherfucking movie right there. You know what I'm saying? That's a romantic movie. And then all of a sudden, he passed out. She, you know what I'm saying? Then she had to go, like John Q type shit, you know? Like, I'm like, damn, that would have been that's a movie, bro.
Yeah. Based
on a true story, and folks would have been like, damn, that shit. Man, you know how many girls would have been there? Oh my God, I just can't believe they would have, bruh. Y'all, if that had happened for real, I know for a fact you would have shed a tear.
Oh gosh.
I know for a fact you would have shed a tear if that had happened for real. Like that, if that was true, that like her heart failed because of that, and just so happened his heart was still good, even though he could have died from anything else. His heart was still good. They could have said, oh, her husband, they the same blood type. She can get his heart, all that. Everybody would be like, oh my fucking, bruh. That would have been one of the best, like, oh my God moments, though.
I hear you.
Hey, I'm just saying, man. You gotta like, that's that romantic type, but
yeah.
But good to see that she still was able to live through this type of situation. And good that the doctor, honestly, continued to study and read.
That, like...
And educate herself.
That too. Not good thing that she so happened to go on that day, but still, good thing she happened to go on that day, and there was a doctor on duty that day, or whatever the case is. Because, you know, some hospitals, they switch out, yeah. You know, doctors and stuff like that. So...
Good thing she got him.
Yeah, good thing she got him. Good thing he remembered, like, went and pondered and was like, I remember this article. There's no harm in trying.
There's no harm in trying.
Let me just at least try, because right now where she at, it's already looking bad.
Hope.
So let me just try, you know. So good thing he did do that. He read the article, remembered the article, and was like, I'm just going to give it a try. She fought. Her kids did what they needed to do, and it was a good outcome.
Yeah, and I pre-jumped that first story.
I know. I felt so bad. I hate with situations like that, especially if it's like a person that's deemed innocent
Yeah,
or whatever,
yeah.
because maybe
The problem is, y'all, we watch, like right now we watching hella little detectives crime stuff,
whatever.
So my head automatically going, because like literally everything we watching
you go
right
to
now.
the deep end.
Yeah, I'm like put my detective head on, time to solve a case. Like every day we watching detective stuff all day long, so that's the reason why my mind automatically jump right there, and I'm just like, oh man, don't tell me I done solved the case that fast. I'm feeling smart in it.
I hear you feeling.
But I'm just saying, with the first case, you can't rule that out. You have to look into that situation because I feel like people would do something. Somebody would do something like that, though.
Yeah, it's a lot of crazy.
Because no matter how long they've been married, it's been people who've been married 50, 60 years still kill their spouse.
True.
So you just gotta you can't as a good person looking into a crime, you can't not turn any you can't leave any stone unturned. You have to look at.
Sorry.
You have to look up on any rock just to make sure there's nothing high.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they did their job and ruled everything out and whatever the case may be. Yeah. It's unfortunate and I hate that it happened.
But I do apologize to Brian.
I apologize to Brian because I was right there with you.
I ain't mean to jump the gun on you. We both jumped the gun. I should have sit your ass out and said it first before I said it. But you were right there with me, man.
Yeah, I was.
But hey, man, y'all spam us up in the comments, man. Let us know y'all thoughts about it in the comment section down below. But as always, I do go by the name DJ McKay. This is
we are.
Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my folks. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money low, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.